Hello, I'm Susan Woods, your self-appointed Black Lives Matter fraud investigator. Thank you so much for your time. The title of this video message is The Black Lives Matter House of Cards is Falling on Patrice Cullors. The Black Lives Matter House of Cards is Falling on Patrice Cullors. The subtitle is Form 990 Examination Overview. I'm sure you probably have been reading news articles or hearing news stories about Patrice Cullors and the fraud that she has committed against the entire Black community by using the funds that were intended for the Black community for her own personal use or to benefit her friends. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation submitted the Form 990 for 2020 that the Secretary of State offices in different states have been requesting or demanding rather. So they did finally submit it, and the investigative reporter at the Washington Examiner by the name of Andrew Kerr shared a copy of the Form 990, and it's not available on the IRS website yet. So as an investigative reporter for a news magazine, he was able to get a copy of it from the accounting firm that prepared it. So we're going to talk about that in this video message, the overview of the Form 990. Before I start talking about the Form 990 though, I want to show you the top portion of the determination letter that the IRS sent to the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. The date of this letter is December the 2nd, 2020. I want to point out the highlighted areas because I want to share some information about each one. Like I said, on December the 2nd, 2020, the IRS mailed the determination letter to the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation at the address that you see printed here on this letter. It is important because the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation never had its own 501c3 status. From 2013 until 2020, Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation worked under a fiscal sponsorship arrangement. Their first fiscal sponsor was Thousand Currents. And then later on, the Tides Foundation took over as its fiscal sponsor. And we'll talk about that timeline in just a moment. The next date that I've highlighted here is December the 31st. This is the accounting period ending date, December the 31st. And this date determines when the Form 990 is due to the IRS for review. This is very, very important because whenever somebody completed the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, they were required to determine the accounting period end date. So they had to tell on the application when they were going to submit their accounting records to the IRS, or the accounting period end date rather. That date determines when the Form 990 is due. For example, December the 31st is what they chose as the accounting period end date for the organization. That is a regular calendar year from January through December. When you choose December 31st as your accounting period end date, your Form 990 is due by May 15th of the next year, because the Form 990 is always due by 5 months and 15 days after the accounting period end date. So that means, again, if your end date is December 31st, you got January, February, March, April, May, 5 months, 15 days. That's when your 990 is due to the IRS. So keep that in mind. The next date I would like to point out is the effective date of exemption. which is August 28th, 2020. So this tells me that the person that was responsible for doing the paperwork to earn the 501c3 status and to get it filed an application for the Articles of Incorporation to be processed with the Secretary of State's office. And the date of the processing of the Articles of Incorporation or the filing of the Articles of Incorporation was August the 28th, 2020. So wherever the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation filed its Articles of Incorporation, the Articles of Incorporation went into effect on August the 28th, 2020. These are very, very important, and I will explain why in just a moment. So the first date again is the letter, the determination letter date of notification, which was December the 2nd, 2020. The second date is the accounting period end date, December the 31st, which determines when the Form 990 is due to the IRS, 5 months and 15 days. So May 15th is when it was due. And then the effective date of exemption is the date in which your articles are filed with the Secretary of State's office. Whichever Secretary of State's office you filed your articles. So your articles have a filing date of August 28th, 2020. So let's move on because you're going to see why these dates are so important in just 1 minute. This is the first portion of the Form 990 2020 information return for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. Again, this Form 990 for 2020 is the one that several Secretary of State offices demanded to see because 2020 is the year in which they generated more revenue than they've ever generated since they were in existence. This is the year in which they admit to generating $90 million. Okay, so let's take a look at row A or line A. It says, for the 2020 calendar year or tax year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Do you see anything wrong with that? We just talked about the dates on the determination letter, right? When was the end date on the determination letter? The end date on the determination letter was December the 31st. But on this Form 990, the end date is June 30th, 2021. And the reason is, some kind of way, they changed their fiscal year midstream, in the middle of the year. In the middle of the time frame, they changed it from being December the 31st, 2020, to being June 30th, 2021. The reason that they did that, and I don't know why, I'm baffled by the IRS and letting them do so many illegal things or tricky things or slippery things, is because they wanted to avoid the 2 months that they generated the majority of the money. They wanted to record less money. Now, on the one hand, they said they generated $90 million. But think about this for a moment. George Floyd was killed on May the 25th, 2020, unfortunately. He died on May the 25th, 2020. May the 25th, 2020 through June the 30th, 2020, that's when a lot of the money was generated. That's when people were just throwing money at the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. That's when people were marching and protesting and sending money to the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation between those 2 months, May 25th, 2020 and June 30th, 2020. But they're not shown here. Those 2 months are not captured in this time frame. Is the accounting for those 2 months? Why did they deliberately changed their reporting year to avoid reporting the revenues they generated in May and June 2020. Why did they jump to July the 1st as the beginning year to June 30th as the ending year? That's a question I would like answered. Another highlighting area is the gross receipts. Again, they claim they generated $90 million, but they're showing $79,644,823. So where is the difference? How can you, in your report, your transparency report that you posted on your website, Patrice Cullors, say that you generated 90 million, but now you're only showing 79? Is that because you cut out 2 whole months of reporting? The next thing I want to point out is the name and address of the principal officer. The principal officer on the board of directors is Shalomaya Bowers. Shalomaya Bowers is the person they've listed as the principal officer, with the address shown above and the telephone number. I dialed a telephone number and it takes you straight to a voicemail box. Nobody's answering the phone. I'm going to come back to Mr. Bowers in just a moment. The next thing I want to point out, look at year of formation, 2017. State of legal domicile, Delaware. Now, remember from the determination letter, it says the date of formation was December, right? I'm sorry, was August the 28th. August the 28th, 2020 was the effective date of exemption, which is the same thing as the year of formation. So, if the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation was formed in 2017 in Delaware, why is the determination letter saying it was formed August the 28th, 2020 in California? The place of formation is the Secretary of State's office. So this means in the year 2017, the state of legal domicile was Delaware, where it was formed, or the articles were filed with the Secretary of State's office in Delaware. That's how you form a corporation, by filing the articles of incorporation, Secretary of State's office, in the state in which you plan to operate. From this 990, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is telling the world that they formed in 2017 in Delaware. However, the determination letter says otherwise. So let's keep going. This is Shalomaya Bowers. He is the founder of Bowers Consulting Firm, a fully integrated political consulting firm whose mission is to support progressive campaigns tackling the biggest political challenges facing society today. He has nearly a decade's experience in developing and implementing community outreach programs and campaigns. He does his work in honor of his brother Donald. Okay, so this is Mr. Bowers. Now you remember Mr. Bowers is the principal officer on the Form 990 for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. So let's look over here to the side and let's learn more about him. Shalomaya Bowers, a member of the BLM Board of Directors and a close associate to Cullors, pulled in $2,167,894 to his company for consulting and management services. The source is the Washington Examiner, Andrew Kerr, investigative reporter, and I put a link to this information in the description so you can read it for yourself. Is this not ridiculous? Is this not ridiculous? It's conflict of interest. This, in the whole world, can you serve on a board of directors that's supposed to govern the operations of the organization on behalf of the public that trusts you with their resources. How can you serve on that same board and then generate or receive money for your? That's a blatant conflict of interest. You can read any article anywhere about conflicts of interest, but start with the IRS.gov. Go to in conflict of interest. There is a whole book about conflict of interest regarding 501c3 nonprofit organizations. And this is a major glaring violation. There's no way in the world this is legal. But when you have one person in charge of $90 million, more than that, we all know it's more than that, doing whatever they want, this is what happens. This is what type of consulting and management services did he provide to earn $2,067,894? $2,167,894 to her friend. This is what Patrice gave to her friend. This is the state of Delaware website. Like I said, according to the filing, the Form 990 filing, they are registered, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is registered with the state of Delaware, meaning they're supposed to be operating in the state of Delaware. Well, you see in glaring red writing, this is not a statement of good standing. They did form on October the 16th, 2017, despite the letter saying, the determination letter saying August 28th, 2020. This is the only filing date that we have. This is what they put on their Form 990. It's so much contradictory information between the Form 990 and the determination letter that red flags should be flying all through the Internal Revenue Service about this organization. Glaring. This is a slap in the face. This is audacious. What state are they registered on August 28th, 2020? It's supposed to be California based on the letter. But guess what? When I looked at California Secretary of State's office, it's not there. Go to the California Secretary of State's office and type in Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. It's not there. So where are you registered? And I know for a fact that on your Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption, you must put the state and the date in which your articles are filed. You must put that in there. The IRS has to confirm that you are registered. Your nonprofit is registered with the Secretary of State's office. That's a requirement. I've done over 255 applications. I know that's a requirement because I register my clients' articles of incorporation in the states in which they plan to operate. I have to do it because I have to prove that they are registered. You cannot get a determination letter without being registered. So the question is, where are they registered? Where is the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation registered? What state is this organization registered in? It says California on the determination letter. It says Delaware on the Form 990, and Delaware saying it's not in good standing. So that means they probably haven't turned in any reporting in years. That's the number one reason why a Secretary of State's office would put you in not good standing. What's going on with this organization? It just baffles my mind. Way with it. I don't know. So upcoming videos. I'm going to really hone in on this 2020 Form 990 information return. I'm going to do one part at a time. That document is 68 pages long. And like I said, I'm going to put the link to it, to Andrew Kerr's report in the description so that you can download it. And within his article is a copy of the Form 990 if you want to go ahead and start looking at it. But I'm going to go through it part by part. And secondly, I have not forgotten about my series on the why Black Lives Matter divided $21.7 million among the LGBTQIA. I'm sorry, I got an extra L in there. LGBTQIA organizations. I know I have parts 3 through 6 I need to finish up for you. So I'm going to work on these two things. But I'm just going to be transparent with you and let you know that every time I do a video on the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, but every time I see something else crazy about Patrice Cullors, my blood pressure literally goes up and I feel bad. I get a headache. This is very, very stressful for me as a Black person because I see this as the ultimate betrayal. You know, people, when I started doing this investigation in June 2020, almost 2 years ago now, I was called everything but a child of God by Black people. I was treated so poorly by people who I thought were not my friends, but people I communicated with. You know, it's just painful to think about the way that I was treated just because I wanted to tell the truth. I don't care that I'm Black. I don't care that I'm a woman. Patrice Cullors is horrible. She's horrible. And the way that this whole Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation exploited the death of a Black man to generate millions of dollars just to use for themselves and not to benefit not one person in the Black community other than their friends, it's atrocious. It's terrible. And I don't care if you take my Black card. I don't care what you think about me as a Black person reporting on a Black woman reporting on a Black woman. I could not care less about that. I'm going to keep reporting until I see her in handcuffs. That's what I want to see. Because what she has done by herself is put a dark cloud over every Black-led nonprofit organization. Every Black-led nonprofit organization is going to have to go above and beyond the call of duty to show transparency, to be authentic, to be real, just because of this one person who decided to be greedy and ignorant and arrogant. So call me whatever you want to call me. I do not care because I'm going to keep reporting on this issue. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.